Well, now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, who is finishing up John Allen's Engine House, and I'm really looking forward to this because I've always admired John Allen and the work that he could do with a lot less modern equipment than we have today. So, Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me. And I wasn't here last week because I was working on this engine house. It's a it's a handful, I'll tell you that. This took me every bit of 4 weeks to complete, and hope you like it. Everybody can see that, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. So I did complete the engine house in so much as it's doesn't have any interior detail. It has interior weathering. Um, and I placed it on the layout. So I'll show you, this is where I was 2 weeks ago. I begun putting in the trusses across the top for the roof. And first thing I did was finish this back wall here, which was just more of the same of this tedious work of putting in these boards and super gluing them in place and painting them. And then I put in this beam. I wanted a beam down the center because in an engine house, I normally hang things from the beam, and I wanted one in there. Plus, it stiffened up the model. Next, this is a close-up of the beginning of the roof trusses, braces. These run left to right, east to west on the roof. You can see each one of these was hand cut, hand sanded, placed in there, and with the attempt to get them perfectly parallel to one another and perpendicular to the trusses. There's completed one side. Everything's painted a chocolate brown. Everything was super glued together. And there's the completed bracing for the roof. Now it has a removable roof, so you get to see all this detail. It's not for loss. The chocolate brown is a nice color for this. It gives it as I said before, between the green and white, I wanted an old antiquish look to this. There's a look inside. It's not weathered, it's not touched up. There's still spills of super glue. I went back and I repainted all the brown and touched up all the green, and then I eventually weathered it, as you'll see. But you have to get it perfect before you weather it. Now I began with the roof, and this is HO scale Monster Model Works shingles. They have an orientation to them. I have 3 skylights on each side. I outlined where the main trusses are. I originally was going to run 2x10s or 2x12s down here, but then I changed my mind. I couldn't leave it like this. Even if I put those 2x6s or 2x8s or whatever I put across here, this would not be a finished surface. It would just be a flat basswood. And I didn't want it to be undetailed. So what I did is I put a sandwich together. This is a scribed material on the other side. I just cut this the same length and width as the roof. Then with a pencil, I just outlined where my cuts would go. This is the flip side. So this is what you see now. So this is it glued together. I did super glue the perimeter of this and out around the windows. I put a yellow glue in between and it warped. And I had to put weights on it and let it dry overnight. The other side, I just used super glue and I had no warpage. Just a little note to myself not to use yellow glue in a paint-like fashion. There's too much moisture in there and it warps basswood. So this is the before finishing the Monster Works material, and this is the after. This is that vinegar, steel wool, rust wash. I did a little weathering here just to see what it would look like, but this is before and after. Then I began making the, I don't know what you call this, a cupola, or the roof vent is what I'm going to call it for this evening. This is one of the sides, the components for the roof vent. So these transformed into this, and then I put these 2x6s on an angle here. So the idea is that when steam locomotives are inside my engine house, the exhaust rises up into this vestibule and it exits out these vents. This is the same technique I used on my covered bridge. And I originally was going to have windows here, but then I'd have to have chimneys here. I just think this is a more elegant, more interesting solution. So there's what it looks like. I think that's a neat look to it. This is finished, unfinished. There's the weathering. I used pan pastels, just 3 shades of brown and a paintbrush, a fat, soft brush. And I just, little at a time, I just add different colors and just got this weathered look to it. Once again, I want to commend Monster Model Works for their fine materials. And as Jim and I talked previous shows and prior to this show tonight, John Allen did this all on his own with cardboard. And quite honestly, he produced a superior model. Not that mine's bad, but his is definitely hits it out of the park. Oh, so there we are. This is not finished here yet, but you can see the models coming along with the weathering. There's an inside. That's just a black alcohol wash for now. I'll go back and clean this up a little bit. But you can see the skylights are actually working, letting light into the building. There's the overall look of the model with the weathering. That's the back wall. This limestone blocks came out really nice. They are just pan pastels on there. I wanted this weathered and used. I didn't want it decrepit, just weathered. There's basically the finished model, all the weathering in place, almost. I did fix that. There's where it goes on the layout. So the problem is there's track there. So I took a razor saw and I cut it out. And with a putty knife, I pried I was surprised how easily this track came up, and the ballast and everything else. It just popped right off. And then I took a razor saw and I made these vertical cuts. And then with a putty knife and a rasp, basically, I cut this out because I want, my buildings all sit on plywood. The penalty for that is you have to sink them into the plastic, into the foam. There it is in place. There's the finished model. I'm going to have, this is an interchange track. There's going to be an O-scale locomotive sitting here. This is not finished yet. That track's just sitting there. I mean, none of the scenery is finished. The model, the engine house is in place though, and those are its 2 locomotives. Came out, like I said, it was very challenging time-wise. Not necessarily high skill required for this, but it took a lot of time. There was a lot to this model. There's a nice shot of it. It's a nice even weathering, or I shouldn't say even, nice weathering, not excessive pan pastels. They're an oil-based chalk, basically. Now, to the immediate right of this engine house, I left a 12-inch gap. And that's because I'm going to feature this next week. This is a kit. I rarely build kits. This is a friend of mine, Mark Shire, and I bought this 2 years ago at Al Judy's show in Harrisburg, and I bought it for this purpose, and I'm going to put it in right in here, and then I'm going to hopefully finish this tunnel and the scenery here. There's not much here. The goal is to have this done next week. We'll see. But this is putting this on the John Allen engine house, just briefly here. On the original John Allen engine house, this penetration, this track going through the entire structure, he had this on the right side. If anybody recalls, early in the program, I said I was going to reverse that. The reason I was reversing it was for this scheme to put in this. Mine's not going to be a station. It's going to be just just basically shacks for maintenance purposes. And yeah, so that's where we are. That's the finished model, and that's it.
Absolutely gorgeous. You ought to really be proud of that.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Tom? Well, you've done it again, sir. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you so much for duplicating what John Allen did so many years ago.
Want to keep the memory alive. That's the other reason I did it.
Absolutely.